Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are going to talk about leveling up. I have with me our co-host, John David, and we are going to tackle leveling up because that is our new theme for this month. We're going to talk about what you should be doing when you land your analytics job to ensure that you are on track for a strong analytics career. So, John David, we're excited to be chatting today, aren't we?
Yeah, and this is a question that we get all the time, especially because I feel like our podcast has been a little bit biased so far into those trying to break into the analytics space. So now what we're going to be doing is, okay, you've already got the job. Now how do you navigate so that you can continue to level up, make more money, get the job you want, kind of have that lifestyle that you want?
Right, exactly right. So we're going to be tackling that, and you'll hear from a variety of experts throughout this month to chat with you about how to level up your career. But we are going to start with, because this is a question we get all the time, what should I be doing once I land that job? And I think that first, obviously, you have to settle in and learn the ropes and figure out how to do the job. But then secondly, beyond that, I always recommend networking. So you may think that you're done with networking because you have landed this position, but what I mean is network in your own company. So this can be helpful in three ways. The first is this person could help you out in the future. So they could be somebody that in the long run, when it comes time for a promotion or position change, they could be that person that advocates for you. They also could be a mentor for you. So maybe they have some institutional knowledge or company knowledge that you don't have. So this can be a great person that can help you learn what is sort of the advisable thing to do in certain situations. And then the last thing I would say is that they can help you understand the different types of roles that are available at the company. So if you really want to pursue additional roles or a different role at your company, this person can help you think about what's available. Or talking to a variety of people can help you think about what's available. I'd also say keep track of your accomplishments. I think we oftentimes don't remember. I mean, I don't remember what I did 3 years ago, except that I have it on my LinkedIn profile or on my resume. So that's the other thing I would say. Whenever you accomplish something, just jot it down somewhere, note what you accomplished, and try to quantify that and talk about your results. So those are the two biggest things I would say once you've landed that job you can be doing.
Yeah, so I think that let's drill down on the mentorship idea, because this is something that I've kind of been trying to navigate myself. Because I've actually had probably 3 or 4 mentors in the past 3 years. And what ends up happening is I've ended up just partnering with them on projects. But a lot of times people who are 20, 30, maybe even 40 years into their career, they have this huge just well of knowledge. And if you're someone who's young and proactive and engaging, it's actually, I think, intrinsically valuable for them. That's actually really validating for a young person to go to, someone, I don't want to say old, a little bit seasoned, I guess,
Seasoned
and
is
say,
a good
hey,
word.
I respect you. I think that you've done a great job. How can I get, on your level, or can I run this by you?
Absolutely. I think having a mentor can be a great opportunity for you to learn from somebody who is a more seasoned professional, to use your word. And so I think it can be incredibly valuable. Now, I don't think you have to go up to someone and say, hey, will you be my mentor? But I think that you could develop a relationship with somebody and then run things by them or ask for their advice periodically. And I do think there is some intrinsic value for them. They're helping you. They're feeling like they're shepherding a new person into the career, and so that can often be something that they enjoy, and people love talking about what they do, so you're given an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Definitely read the social cues, because if someone is very short and kind of a little cold to you, don't double down and try to chase them and say, I want you to teach me things. It's been my personal experience, though, that like the most powerful, influential, high status people that I've come across typically, and this is kind of counterintuitive, I'd say, to the typical narrative, they're pretty open and jovial. I mean, that's not every single executive I've come across, but quite a few, especially the ones who have like mentored me and really shown me some value.
I agree, and I think that a lot of times we're really nervous to approach these people, and they could be higher ups, they could be somebody that's one position ahead of you. But a lot of times we're afraid to approach these people. But remember, these people are just people. And oftentimes the folks who make it to those higher roles have some really strong soft skills. So they're going to be strong communicators. able to mentor and to provide advice. Maybe they won't always be available. You have
That's
to
true.
think about
Yeah.
that and think about their time.
You
be
don't want to
respectful.
make demands on their time.
Right.
But I mean, they're almost like politicians.
Right, yeah,
Like
in a
they're
way.
yeah, they're running their own little fiefdom of their department or their company. And yeah, they're looking to grow people within their organization because it actually makes their job easier at the end of the day.
Right. If you are somebody that is a strong employee for them, it does make their job easier, and they're looking for that, and they're looking for what's going to happen with the chain of command eventually. And so if you can be the person that they want in a particular position, if you can help them out in some way, that's a great place to be.
Ooh, I just had an idea. And if the executives in your company aren't like that, you may want to leave that company.
Ooh.
See, because
Hot take.
that is getting into kind of like the political struggle there. But I was talking with my business partner Ryan about a fairly large organization here locally, and I can talk about this because I have not disclosed any details. They're letting go about 50% of their workforce. Unfortunately, the 50% they're holding on to are like the kind of stick in the mud executives that are failing to adapt. So that company is really struggling to keep up with the COVID epidemic. Like they're trying to adjust to what's going on in the marketplace, but they don't have the talent and the people who are young and fresh. They're kind of doubling down on their old ways.
Well, I think that this speaks to the need for us to learn from each other, no matter if you're that seasoned professional or you're that new professional. I think we all have different perspectives, and it can be valuable to hear those. I think somebody who is right out of college has a much different take than somebody who's middle of their career or even at the end of their career. And so having the opinion and perspectives of all those people just makes for a better product, better service.
Yeah, well, and also too, so I was interviewed on the Super Data Science podcast a couple weeks ago, and they asked me, don't you get intimidated like advising CFOs, CMOs, and like directors of large companies? And the metaphor that I made is like, have your parents ever asked you to fix their computer?
Right.
Because they see you as like the guru or the whiz. A lot of these higher ups do not have the same frame of reference or like mindset for emerging technology. And you being young and growing up with Facebook and text messages, you have this kind of intrinsic edge that they don't have.
The whole digital native debate.
Right. Well, okay. What's this debate?
Well, not a debate, I would say, but just the whole digital native idea is that we grew up with that sort of technology, and so it is more intuitive to us than it might be to somebody who didn't grow up around it.
Right. But I would say that it's almost like the Lion King, like the circle of life.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, because whether it's technology, post 2000, but back in the 70s, there were new people with fresh ideas. And it's kind of like the Red Queen theory where you have to continually evolve just to stay into existence.
I think that's true. I think we see that every day. I mean, Netflix is a great example of that in our lifetime. They used to be, some of y'all out there might not remember this, but they used to be a company that they sent you DVDs in the mail.
Wow, yeah. I mean, look at Blockbuster.
Right. They are obsolete. So I do think evolving is important. But let's get back to leveling up in your own career. And I know that this is a topic that a lot of people ask us about as well. So, and actually good segue because we were talking about technical skills that younger analysts might have. So let's say that you have been in your role for a few years. How do you ensure that you're staying up to date on your technical skills and the new tools that are available?
The first point I want to talk to you is this concept called YouTube University.
Okay, tell us about it.
So all of the concepts that you could ever want to know about analytics is free online on the internet. Now, you could take a course, like I think I've got about 10 courses published between Udemy and LinkedIn at this point, and what you're paying for when you take these online courses is that I put it into my voice and you like how I teach. But I've also structured it so that each lecture builds on the next. Because right now, I mean, I'm in the middle of, I just launched a 6-hour Power BI course. A lot of those concepts I had never been exposed to. So I just went on YouTube to figure out the specific concepts that I was not familiar with. Like, for example, there's some AI-powered analytics functionality within Power BI. So like the decomposition tree, which I'm getting a little bit too technical, I think.
I'm like, I don't know what a decomposition tree is, but hopefully a lot of you out there might know what that is.
Well, you do have YouTube.
That's true. I could YouTube it, yes.
So you do want to continually being leveling up your skill set, but I think the best way to do that is to take on new projects and kind of push. Because I think a lot of people will just go and they take courses online that don't really seem to relate back to their core competency. Mm. So that's kind of my take on how you continually level up. So number one, you need to get scrappy. You need to find these resources on your own. It's not like in most of the universities where they're just going to spoon feed you. So your manager comes to you and says, hey, I need you to analyze supply chain data. They're not going to say, and here's a rule book on how you approach that. Like you need to get out and start pulling resources from the internet. So I mentioned YouTube as a free resource, but also the Power BI forums and the Tableau forums are amazing as well. And these take it even a step further because when I've come across roadblocks, I'll post on those forums and someone will literally solve that problem for me. So it's almost like you can crowdsource your education, not only through all these YouTube videos, and I think Medium's a great way of learning as well. But then also there's community forums around the analytics space where you can level up your skills. But I think it comes back to you kind of need to expand out your own role a little bit, if that makes any sense.
So if you take on more projects, you'll have more opportunity to build different skills.
Well, okay, so I'm biased there because that's how I've built my skill set.
Okay.
So I have basically taken on, the first 3 years of my consulting practice, I took on projects I didn't know how to do.
Right.
and then just figured them out. Which, I actually didn't have any major catastrophic failures as far as taking on new projects. I mean, here or there, I actually had to hire like a data scientist or a database administrator to come in, and I lost a little bit of the profit margin on my projects. But it's almost like you're building up a body of work, and you need to kind of think about it.
Okay.
From that perspective.
Yeah. So certainly one of the ways that you can level up your skill set is to look online, take on projects, and stretch your skills. You and Christopher Scott talked about certifications a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
So speak to that a little bit. What's your take on certifications?
So the take on certifications is that they are really good at proving you know a tool. And I think, did we have this conversation already? I think we're actually about to in the upcoming video.
Okay.
Certifications are a great way of proving that you have tool knowledge, but that is not the complete story. So it's almost like, I think the metaphor you make, normally is, it's almost like your ticket to the dance. Mm-hmm. So you have that certification. If it's an analyst role that has Power BI in the description, if you have the certification, they're at least going to give you a look in most cases.
Right. So this could be something that's good, especially for people who are trying to get their first analytics job, need to have a baseline skill set. You have that certification. It proves that you know that tool sort of situation.
Right. It proves that you know the tool. But what's funny is I posted on the our Power BI subreddit, and I got blasted by a number of analytics managers who said certifications mean nothing to me.
Okay. So different take on this.
Well, because what a certification means is that you know where to push the right buttons. But you're not just a space monkey that's pulling levers. Like, you need to understand the actual business use case and what are the business initiatives and how are the analyses and data visualizations pushing forward those initiatives.
Okay.
So this is where a portfolio comes into play.
Right.
So I think you should have the certifications, but you should also have a proof of concept that you know how to analyze data and you understand the business need. And you can use data to make better data-driven decisions.
Right. But certifications can sort of prove that you are trying to continue to build your skill set, even if they aren't an application of that skill set.
Yeah. Well, I think what it proves is that you're willing to, you want to grow your career and you want to prove that you can analyze data using a given tool. Right. But it kind of gets back to, I don't know if we've talked about this yet. I've interviewed multiple hiring managers at this point, and I think the way that the analytics space is going is that you should be tool agnostic. Okay. So when I started my career, I was a Tableau specialist. But then Power BI kind of just exploded into the scene, and now I'm adapting I started with Tableau, but now I use Power BI as well. So now I have a much bigger kind of pie to eat from.
So we're almost full circling this question because I think that there are always going to be new tools coming out.
Right.
That's just inevitable. And so part of leveling up your career is staying up to date with those new tools. And you're saying there's a variety of ways you can do that. One being online, one being that you potentially do a certification to show that you know that tool. Another one being, I think you mentioned one other thing, online forums was another place that you could do this. You may get lucky, y'all, too, and you may have somebody in your company or a hiring manager who's willing to pay for you to go to a data camp, for instance, or go take a course online, whatever it might be, or even go to a conference where you may be able to learn some new skills. So I think there are a lot of different ways to continue to build, but the point being, new tools are emerging all the time, and so you have to be adaptable and flexible and not just get stuck and pigeonholed in one particular tool.
Right. And I mean, it's almost like you can do some Pareto analysis here of learning new tools is kind of like the icing on the cake, but the cake itself is proving that you know how to use data to drive decisions.
Got it.
So the technical skills are secondary, I would say, and even Chris Scott said this directly in the interview we had with him. What was that, last week, 2 weeks ago? And that you specifically need to understand the business and how data applies to it.
Right.
That is like the key, the trick, like, well, it's not even a trick. It's the cake of that. It's like, this is what you do day in and day out, is you use data to help your manager, help your CEO, help whoever make a better decision that either gets you more sales or drops cost or, you know, improves efficiency in some specific way.
Right. So let's not lose sight of what the main goal is. The tools are simply that. They are tools to help you do this business analysis, to help you improve the business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we also have talked about the concept of taking orders versus being an advisor. And I want you to speak a little bit to that because you have a take on this.
Yeah, okay. So I've had multiple different consulting engagements where I would have a client send me a data set, tell me what visualizations to build, and then I would basically just pull all the right levers, hit the buttons, and then send them exactly what they wanted. That if you continue to stay in that space for multiple years, it's really going to limit the trajectory of your career. Versus if you can kind of own the specific analysis or business need that you have, if you can kind of own the sales data as you're the sales analyst and you know that data source like the back of your hand, when your manager comes to you with a question, you can all of a sudden say, well, why are you asking that question? And then you could say, well, have you considered this? And then you're almost retraining that relationship. So instead of them just coming to you and saying, I need this bar chart or this line chart, you can then say, well, why? Because maybe, you know, there's something that they're missing, or maybe there's a better way to do it. And it really kind of flips the power dynamic between you and your manager to where they're your manager, so you're not on equal footing, but they're seeing you kind of as an advisor, someone who is giving advice, who has a deep well of knowledge, and it's like basically it's a really solid resource that they can pull from.
Right, and this may take you a minute to become this advisor, be in this advisor role, because of course, especially if you're in your first entry-level job, you kind of need to know how to do your main duties, and then you can start to think about advising and taking initiative and all of that. But I do think there's that flip, that switch between, okay, my manager is going to come to me and just say, here, do X, Y, and Z, versus me saying, hey, manager, I see this problem. Here's my proposed solution. Do I have your blessing?
Right. Another way of framing that up is being reactive versus proactive.
Right.
So if you're proactively studying the data, you might spot a trend that is going to hurt sales or increase costs, and you can nip it in the bud before it becomes a major issue.
Right.
So then you start building kind of that trust with your manager.
Exactly right. Yeah, absolutely. I often also, I'm going to speak to this a little bit, I get this question about promotion. So we're almost speaking a little bit to once you're moving into an advisor type of role and you are in that place where you're integral for your manager, how do you then move up from there? So I get this question, what can I do? How can I position myself to be promoted? And I think that there are a couple of things that I would tell you. First and foremost, we already talked about this in this episode, but keep track of your accomplishments and be able to link them to the business goals, the business objectives. What were the results? So it's great if you created this visualization, or it's great if you created this forecasting model, whatever it is that you did, but how did it ultimately impact the business? And if you can do that and keep track of that, then you are building your case for why you deserve and should be promoted. The other thing I would tell you is you may be in a business where you have clients potentially, and if you do and they're giving feedback, then and it's positive, keep track of that. Keep track of positive reviews, positive things that people say about you. But ultimately, what you want to do is have all of your accomplishments sort of in one place, that when it comes time for you to approach a manager about this, you can talk to them about why you would be a suitable person for a promotion.
Yeah, and I think this relates back to the order taker versus advisor. Because if you can show that high-level thinking, you're already managing before you're into a manager role.
Right. You're exactly right. And I think I will say this, even if you're in an entry-level role, that doesn't mean that you can't be an advisor. So to spin that on the positive, if you're in an entry-level role, you can still be an advisor to your manager. Now, you may not be an advisor day one. You need to build some trust and some clout,
Yeah.
you know. But
we need to be careful here. Don't
Right.
show up on the first day and say,
Right.
you're doing this all wrong.
I've been here 1 hour, and let me tell you all the things you are not doing correctly.
Right. Like you need to listen, and you need to think deeply and spot some of the recurring patterns and then address them. And you need to do it with a velvet touch.
Right.
Because your manager, they may not want to hear what you have to say.
And part of that is feeling them out too, what type of manager you have, and that will take a little bit of time as well. So I think that it's important to understand your manager's work style, also the company culture that you're in, and then yes, this is a little bit of a velvet touch, to use your words, where you have to sort of navigate all of that. But once you're in a position of trust with this manager and they are receptive to ideas, then you can position yourself to be an advisor.
And you may run into a situation where your manager is threatened by you kind of taking up more space. And that could be a major roadblock to you getting that promotion or you moving up in the company. So that is something to take into consideration. Like you need to kind of, I mean, I don't want to sound like overly Machiavellian or like you're overly looking at personal dynamics, but some people are not generous, some people are selfish, and they're insecure and they're threatened. So if that is the case, you may want to move to a different company, or, I mean, within some of these big companies, you can just change departments.
Which is where networking, like we talked about
Right,
in the beginning of this episode,
right.
can be really, really
It's all
helpful.
coming full circle.
I mean, full circle. It can be incredibly helpful. The more folks you know in your organization, more people you know, the more opportunities you're going to know about. That's just the way that it works.
So you want to talk about LinkedIn?
Yes, I do want to talk about LinkedIn. A lot of people think that once they have landed that first analytics job, or even they've gotten that promotion, or they've landed their second analytics job, that the LinkedIn profile, the resume goes out the window. But I would tell you, you are going to make your life so much easier if you just write down your accomplishments. And this will also serve when you're trying to vie for that promotion. But in the case of a resume, LinkedIn, just go ahead and update those documents as you go. Because like I said, it's going to be really hard to remember 5 years from now. And for you more seasoned professionals, 20 years from now, you're not going to remember what you did. And so make sure that you go ahead and just create those accomplishments as you go. Update your profile as you go. If you've worked on a big project, think about what you did, what your results were, quantify it, stick it on your LinkedIn profile, and then you're good to go.
So I've got a pro tip here.
Pro tip.
Yeah, pro tip. So on LinkedIn, if you're doing exactly what Elizabeth laid out, what you can also do is toggle on that you are open to new opportunities. So this can basically be your passive resume. And I built relationships with multiple recruiting firms, and they're always, I mean, that is literally their job. They don't get paid. Well, I'm not sure about the total. Maybe they have a base salary, but then they get a commission each time they place someone new. So your LinkedIn profile is kind of like your cyber way to network and level up. And I get, I don't know, maybe one requests every week or every other week about filling some analytics role. And that way you've completely turned the tables. You're not actively applying. They're coming to you. I mean, what's the saying? The best time to get a job is when you already have one.
When you already have one, absolutely. Yeah, there is this feature on LinkedIn. You guys should be aware of it. You can say that you are open to opportunities, and you can. The idea with LinkedIn is you could make that sort of private to your employer. I don't know how that plays out, so I'll caution you with that. But certainly, if you have an updated profile, you are going to look more enticing. It allows you to have that network.
So I believe that you can toggle that on and off, and that is a private setting.
Right.
So I don't think that your employer, and if your employer is like going out into LinkedIn to see if you're, that's a little bit of a red flag to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so I have heard that it's private as well. I've told clients about it. I haven't done the search of looking to see, could I tell if I worked at the same company as this person that they're looking, but that could be a good research thing. And if y'all want to do it, you let us know what you find out. But yeah, I think that LinkedIn can absolutely serve you even as you are still in a job that you like, you're happy about, and it can be a really good thing for when you are ready to look. And certainly it can be a passive way to look as well. So you may get to a point in your career, you've leveled up so much that recruiters, hiring managers, HR people are coming to you, and that puts you in a pretty nice position. So certainly I'd say keep your LinkedIn profile up to date, and if for no other reason, it makes your life a lot easier when it comes time that you do want that next job.
That's a good point. So you have any closing thoughts? Because we're at 26 minutes right now.
Oh, look at us. Perfect timing.
Just burning through this.
Yes. I don't know that I have any burning closing thoughts. Do you?
Yeah, well, okay. So we're going to be interviewing Tyler Lubin.
Yes.
And I just want to talk about this concept called geo-arbitrage.
Okay, tell us.
Which I picked up by, I read the 4-Hour Work Week when I was like 22. So this is kind of some advanced kind of leveling up. But what you can do is if you can negotiate a remote contract, you can live in a place like Thailand or Costa Rica to where your money can go 4 or 5 times as far. I literally watched a video this morning on a guy who has a $75 a month condo in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and he spends like, I think maybe $600 a month.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's kind of like some ninja tactics right there. But I thought that would be kind of a cool little teaser to end on, because Tyler Lubin actually walks through how he negotiated slowly. So he negotiated working remotely 1 day a week, then he worked his way up to 2 days a week. Then he actually fully pulled the cord and worked remotely. He was getting paid, I think in Atlanta. He moved to Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and his money was like, not only is there a currency changeover, but then the cost of living of Atlanta versus Playa del Carmen is just, his money's going like 6 times as far.
Right. Yes, that sounds like a pretty great life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I think also to your point with all of the COVID-19 stuff, it'll be interesting to see what happens with remote work and whether we're going to see more flexibility with that. So I love that preview because we'll be hearing from somebody who's been doing it even before all of this.
Yeah.
So great. Well, I think that wraps up our episode, our introduction to leveling up. We are going to continue on with this topic for the next few episodes, and we are so excited that you tuned in. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, see you guys.